Good morning. Today we are relaunching our Fireside Chat series with episode number 67. Today's topic is going to be the cookie banner experience, which is going to be held by 4 of our team members: Remco, our CEO; Jesus, our senior marketing consultant; Dario, our performance marketing expert; and Cecilia, one of our directors.
Okay, so our topic number 1, cookie banner experience. So, Jesus, would you like to quickly introduce the topic?
Of course, Anna. So basically, we all know that in any conversion process, there are like 3 key moments, right? One of them is you have to reach out to the right audience. Then you need to have your ads be clicked. And the third one is once customers are in the landing page, it's important that the communication flow is not interrupted and the customer receives the right information and eventually fills in the form, performs the purchase or whatever has to happen. Now with the new cookie banners, there's a moment when all these processes have happened and the customer is in the final landing page, and there's boom, this big disruptive, different, completely unrelated text in the middle where a customer has to make a decision. And I was wondering, this is a conversation we started recently, is this something that us as marketeers we would be looking also into as a potential factor when we have to explain if our campaigns perform or not? What do you guys think?
What do you mean? Perform as in before people come to your website, or if it's a reason why things aren't going as well as planned?
It's more the second, right?
Yeah.
Which is at the end of it is more like the topic. But if as marketeers we try to envision the whole process from who you are reaching out to what happens once they come to your landing page, if they purchase or not, or sign in for your newsletter or whatever needs to happen afterwards, this big disruptor might be something that at some point, from existing or not existing, or if the banner changes at certain point, might affect massively your final results. And this is something that maybe as marketeers we should also keep control over.
Well, I mean, the question is, as of now, technically, legally speaking, there shouldn't be any websites that do not have. I mean, there are a few, obviously. Yes. Everybody should have a cookie banner, right? So
sure.
Let's assume they all have. So your question is really not whether to have one or not have one, or how having one impacts the conversion rate, but rather how the looks and the placing and the layout of the cookie banner might impact conversion rates positively or negatively, exactly. Right? So personally, and it's just an opinion because I haven't found any data on that, and if you did, please share. Personally, from what I've read and also from the studies that I've seen, people have already mainly gotten used to the fact that there's a cookie banner and you need to click somewhere and you just go past the cookie banner, right? Yeah. So, plus we know that there's organizations now like NOIP pushing for cookie banners conforming to laws, which means that the choice between accepting and not accepting needs to be pretty obvious and easy to make, right? So ideally, in 1 or 2 years, all the cookie banners, no matter the color or the positioning, need to be, I can click yes or I can click no, and that's it. So assuming that will be the case very soon, my personal opinion would be people would just click either or and go on because they've gotten used to it, and the usability of the cookie banners will need to be, super easy anyways. So I think there's just a period now where there might still be websites where it's a bit more complicated or a bit easier to, do other things. But probably in 1 or 2 years, after a few more fines have been paid, very likely cookie banners are going to be very similar everywhere. And then I think the question is it's not a question anymore, in my opinion, at least.
Do you think then that maybe a standard cookie banner that people recognize and they don't have to every single time, because now they are very different from one website to the other, can be very different. And actually we saw that some websites even try to think the content of their cookie banners so they are more funny, or they even try to bring a
Yes.
sense of humor, try to make it more digestible, if that's even a word. But maybe if they all had the same cookie banner regardless of the content, maybe it would be also standardized in the reaction that customers have to it and not have such a big impact
Basically,
on
yes.
usability.
I think it is important that at first glance, when you come to a website, that you know exactly what you're getting or what's happening. Because if you have a pop-up or layover that covers the entire site, you see that generally speaking, just jump off or drop off rates are significantly higher because you just don't know what the content is that you will get afterwards. So I do think if you can keep that as slim as possible, that helps. Just to keep to make sure that you know what the experience is going to be like once you do accept it. The second part that I personally find interesting is that I see more and more companies using it as a marketing tool because it's the first touch point with the customer. And what we want to get consent on from the customer is mostly that they are willing to allow us to share data with third parties, right, or with us. So especially if we, in marketing terms, if we would like to use customer data to try and find similar people on the internet, generally speaking, then we have to get the consent of the customer in the first place that we are allowed to use this information to and send this and share this with others. Now, not everyone is of course willing to do so because they just don't want to share that personal to them personal information with us. And it doesn't even have to be personal. It can be just the content of what they had bought or the what was in their average basket or just their location. It doesn't even have to be that personal. I mean, it's a general thing, but still. And what you see more and more now, especially news websites are very good at, is they offer you two options. They say either you buy a subscription with us, for example, and then they use it as a marketing tool, or on the same and next to that they have this, or you accept the fact that we will use your content for marketing purposes and you will be marketed to, so please accept all of our cookie policies. And if you do that, then you sort of add value to the customer at a very early stage in the process. And I think that can also drive conversions down the line for yourself, especially if you're in a subscription model business.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very, very valid point. But that assumes that customers are going to see value whether in the choice they can make in the cookie banner.
Yeah.
When we were having this discussion, I was researching a little bit. I found an article talking about research by University of Michigan, I think it was, where it said that they found out that 80% of customers, their goal when they click on the cookie banner is actually to get rid of the cookie banner, because what they want is to continue watching the video, reading the article, interacting with the website, whatever it was. So I think that what you're saying might actually be very relevant, but we would need to know first if customers actually appreciate the value of having a choice.
I'm not sure they really like it. You sort of have to nearly dumb it down and explain exactly for dummies what the information is that is being used, because just pressing on an okay, I consent to sharing my data with third parties and a long text is difficult still for people to grasp. I don't really think they understand what that means.
I think in general, you could probably say, so, I mean, there's a few like basic principles we see at work already, right? In general, people want to get rid of the thing. So they click wherever they can click easiest. And if by law we are obliged to make the choices equal, then it's basically 50-50 chance. So the only thing that I have seen that worked for me personally is when websites, like boutique websites, actually in a very simple manner, or very like getting to me in a good way, explained why it's important for them to have that data. That actually tilted my choice towards, okay, I like you, I like what you're doing, I want to help you, I click accept, right? So either it's a whatever button I see first, or I choose to give my data because the website made a good argument and made me like them. which is probably not going to work for your standard big, boring website. That's probably more a use case for smaller niche websites. But I think those websites should definitely capitalize on that and make it as personal and as relevant as possible. I think that's one thing you can do. So what Remco said, it needs to be as non-intrusive as possible. So you need to see what you're getting. By law, you need to have an equal choice. I mean, lots of people don't yet do that, but it will happen. It will be like that in the future. So you need to have an equal choice, and then it needs to speak to you in a way that makes you make the right choice, basically. I think these are like the principles that we need to start thinking about already now. I mean, you can do some nudging and bigger buttons and color plays now, but I think in 1 or 2 years, that's not, you won't be able to do that anymore anyways. So
Why do you think it's going to be standardized?
no, but because
There's
by
actually-
law, so there's lots of people who do this kind of like NOIP or other guerrilla data protection people that basically analyze these use cases. And what they say is that over 90% of the banners in use at the current moment are basically actually not legally, they're not okay.
They're not legal. Okay. Yeah.
They're not okay. You mustn't nudge people towards a choice.
Yeah.
You need to give them like equal choice, and that's it.
I absolutely agree with you guys. So my take on it is also to get a little back to Jesus' first initial question. It's not about like conversion rates anymore. I think it's all about maximizing the conversion data on the website. So building your cookie banner in that sort of environment where you get as many exceptions as possible. One big point you mentioned, Cecilia, is making it as personalized as possible to show people what it's all about. And in that sense, I brought 2 examples today I wanted to share with you guys. Those are not highly focused on the content itself, but there is like a functional point which I would like to share, which I think is really important, and not a lot of people know about that. So let me share that with you real quick. The first one is obviously is from About You. I mean, it's nothing fancy, and when we talk about if it's legal or not, I guess this is not a good not a good one. But from a functionality, I would like to show you something. So once you enter this page, it's still 100% accessible for me. I can click everywhere while the cookie banner is still up. And this, from a functional perspective, should mean nothing is tracked from that side until I hit accept or OK in that case. The other example, which we often see, is, for example, from Decathlon. So there's this really prominent cookie banner, and I can't do anything with it. I can't interact with the page in the back only until I hit accept. And there's a problem with that I see from About You. The thing is, if they do everything properly and I accept, firstly I ignore this cookie banner. So when I enter the page and ignore it for now, interact, and then on this page I'll go with OK. This is the point where the page starts collecting data, which basically means if I entered the initial page through a digital campaign from Facebook or from Google Ads, all the marketing data is gone, and About You will think I entered that page on that level, although I just accepted the cookie data. So I'm fine that they track me and use my data, but due to that, incorrectly implemented type of cookie banner, this marketing data is now gone. When we think about Decathlon, let's say I entered that page through a Facebook paid campaign, and I need to accept right here. Decathlon will now still have the UTM parameters and will understand where it originally come from. So this is another way of optimizing the tracking data, which we can do through the functional integration of it. I thought this is really interesting. Not a lot of people know about that, and yeah, I thought that's really interesting for this round as well.
That's actually a super interesting point, Dario, and it ties in with what I read. So there's a study by, I think, Deloitte, whatever, big company, where they looked at, I think, something like 200 European websites and the cookie banners and the interaction rates of the cookie banners depending on where they were placed. And what they found out is basically that if you have a banner at the bottom, because it is not as disturbing as the other banners, the interaction rate is basically the lowest, close to no interaction, like close to, I think it's lower than 5%, the interaction rate with the banner itself, right? So some people would say, hey, that's great because people don't use the cookie banner, whatever. But in reality, it's actually really bad because it means they don't make a decision, and that automatically means we cannot collect data, right? So as you said, actually the smarter way is probably force people to make a choice really early on, because if they don't make a choice, it's also a choice, right? Mm-hmm. It's like same thing basically. So make people choose early on, and then with the people that allow you to collect data, collect as much data as you can. Like, I'm not saying 30, 40 cookies, but just as much data about their journey on your website as you can, right? From as early as possible on, right? So I think that's a very, very valid point that you just showed. And also think about mobile. I mean, your screenshots were desktop now. On mobile, these banners behave very, very differently, right? So I think we should also be aware that depending on the devices, the experience with these things might be very different. And if we don't equalize the experience, we might actually skew our own analytics data, right? Because if the thing is really good to use on one device and really bad to use on the other device, in my analytics, it looks like I have lots of these types of users and very little of those users. And it might just be because the cookie banner is really bad on one device versus the other. So really good point.
So thank you to each of our GANDT team members for taking part in the conversation today, and to everyone who took the time to listen, and stay tuned for many more exciting topics for our Fireside Chat series.